Welcome to the Warriors of Light podcast, where we interview other warriors of light, people who are up to big things and making a positive impact in the world.
There is so much magic in our souls. And the question is, how do we live more fully aligned with the wonder that exists within us? How do we step more fully into our purpose? How do we show up as the influencers and creators that we're meant to be? And that is the conversation we're having today on the Warriors of Light show with the amazing and talented Skip Kelly. It's an honor to have you on the show, Skip. And I'm like really excited to dig in and see what we uncover as we explore. Like how is it, that we show up more fully in our purpose? How is it that we show up and activate more of the wonder and magic that exists? And it's so great to have you here.
I'm so honored. I'm so excited to have this epic conversation and share as many beautiful things as I can.
Yeah. I kind of feel like in one of my roles in my soul calling is I call myself a soul collector, right? I just go and find extraordinary people. And I love that this show gives us an opportunity to cultivate these deep, empowering conversations and to talk about what really matters. And I'm so grateful that you're in my life now and so excited to share some of your soul wisdom with the people that are joining us for the show right now. Tell me, like, for you, if someone is brand new, they've never heard of who this Skip Kelly guy is or what he's up to in the world, what would you say is are the highlights of who you are and what you're up to and why you do what you do?
I have to interrupt this programming to just have everyone look at your face right now and your voice and recognize that you are literally a carbon copy of Paul Rudd. Everyone just giggle at that right now and realize how similar Gerald and Paul Rudd are. It's absolutely fantastic. And now that I've said it and you hear his voice, you're never going to be able to unhear that and unsee that. I'm actually convinced you're wearing a wig and you are Paul Rudd.
Yeah, there you go. The secret's out. The secret is out.
Yeah. So the question was, how do I show up and what's wonderful is basically the question.
Basically, question is like, who the hell is this Skip Kelly guy, and like, why should I listen to him? Like, what is the magic you bring to the planet? Like, what's alive for you in this moment?
Yeah, to be honest, I don't know if anyone should listen to me unless you feel really called to. There's, I've made a lot of big plays in life, and I've made a lot of mistakes. So I'm pretty cutthroat with myself about the things that I share. People know this about me. I'll only make a recommendation if I feel very, very strongly about it. Something that my family said about me when I was really young was that Skip has the gift of gab. And that is the idea of being able to charm or persuade people in any direction that I wanted to from a very young age. And I've taken that as a really serious responsibility as I've gotten older, knowing that that's possible. So anything, I tell my friends and my family and anyone around me, if I get to the point, because I take that so seriously, if I get to the point where I start to recommend something or teach something, it's because I've been thinking about it for this person for like 6 months. It's like it's been in the background. So by the time I get to recommending it, most people just trust that if I introduce them to someone or recommend something, that it's quite serious.
Yeah, I love that you take that influence like seriously, and I think that's really, really important. Like for people that are like curious in terms of like what you've done, what you're up to right now, like what's the high level like bio that you would share with people to kind of give them a sense of like the journey that you've been on?
Yeah. When I was 18, I got hired by a motivational speaker as his right-hand man. And what he said to me is, Skip, I just want you to be at my events. And I was like, so wait, you're gonna pay me to just show up? And he said, yes, I just want your energy in the room. And you do like whatever it is that you do, but I just want you to be at everything, which was incredible, right? Mm-hmm. And since then, I've learned a lot about why that is and why that might be, and why all of our energies have such unique signatures, and why it's so important for us to be where we are and to really begin to understand that within ourselves. Like, what is the place where our energy serves at its highest level? So beyond that, I I wanted to build a skill set that could do anything. So I took a 100% commission sales job a year and a half later so that I could start to build what, Jim Rohn and Tony Robbins and all these people said was the ultimate skill set. And so I honed that craft of persuasion. However, I found out I was really bad at sales, really bad. Eventually, what I ended up discovering when I became great at it is I just needed to be selling the right things. If I had belief, if I had faith, if I, like I said, knew without the shadow of a doubt that this would be good for someone, then I could sell everything. It needed to be something without the shadow of a doubt, which is a trajectory that my life has followed ever since. So the projects that I'm working on now, one of them is called the Thrive Dojo, which is primarily an online ecosystem, but we do have an awesome community here in Austin, Texas, going to these live events and practicing essentially these 10-minute physical practices where people are laying down on their back, doing extremely subtle movements. It looks like the most gentle, most lazy form of yoga you've ever seen in your life. However, what's really happening in it is they create electrical coherence in their body. And when they do that and the electricity in their body is harmonized, they feel grounded, they feel peaceful, they feel organized in their thoughts, emotions, body, and essentially their soul, right? And because of that practice, people generate massive amounts of energy and attract wonderful things into their life, which we also combine with a lot of other things, which is where it's now evolved. The Thrive Dojo has evolved into something called the Wonder Soul experience, which is where we combine breath work from special people here in Austin and around the world with the Thrive Dojo part of it, which is the physical coherence part of it, with embodiment practices of different kinds, which could be dance. It could just be like allowing things to feel. It could be any sort of physical movement or breath work or sound healing. I mean, there's just lots of things that you can kind of throw in to that Wonder Soul brand, right? And have people generate peace, bliss, and just amazing energy in their lives. So part of that is the magic formula. And the magic formula is essentially super, super powerful intention setting or goal setting, and done less from a 3D space and more from like a magic space, like more of a manifestation practice, although taken and built into a consistent, predictable practice.
That's amazing. And I love how you've been like collecting all of these like powerful alchemical soul processes designed to help people really create what they want. And I would love during the time we have together.
So let me interrupt you with that. Just to clarify for people, you specifically use the word create what they want. And one thing that we talk about is when it comes to creating something really beautiful in your life, there's a big difference between desiring something and knowing something. So for instance, last year in March, I was walking outside of a gym. I had a walkable lifestyle. We had a Tesla, but we had 3 kids, a lot of driving around and stuff. And as I was walking out of this gym, I saw this car in the parking lot. I had no idea what it was. I had no intentions of getting a car. But when I looked at it, I just like held this profound sense of like, I'm very like attached to this car, even though I have no idea what it is. And I was just walking with a friend, and it literally, the energy was so stopped me that I like stopped and looked at it mid conversation and was like, what is this? And then lo and behold, 5 months later, I needed to get a car, and I did all this research, and that was the exact car. That was the one that felt right for me and fit all the things that I needed out of a car at that time, right? And so there's a difference between wanting a phantom Rolls Royce and having like a deep knowing or a deep connection to something in your future. And this is a concept that one of my favorite teachers, Jeffrey Allen, calls like your now. Like, how big is your now, right? Your now in your mind space is like this nanosecond in every nanosecond, right? Your body's now, as you get more coherent, as you align yourself with your, body, mind, soul, all those things, the body is now, your soul's now can expand dramatically. So everyone's had this experience. Anyone listening or watching right now can say like you've met a person at some point where you were like, whoa, there's big energy there, no matter who you are. And when you have that big energy, I would suggest that it's a possibility that in this iteration, this lifetime that you're in, there's probably a big future or a potential future with this human of all kinds. And the emotions that you get right out of the gate, whether that's a big emotion of fear or whether that's a big emotion of something else, is your body living into and knowing that future, right? So when it comes to creating things or manifesting things, right? If you desire things and you want those things, it's less likely to come through in this magic formula process that hopefully we get to run them through. It's more likely to come through if you're working with a thing that's a knowing. And an easy way to know that is, generally speaking, your passions or your purpose. If you're drawn to something, if something really just sticks out at you all of the time, there's a good chance that that's part of your purpose. So really trust that, even if it feels unreasonable. I have friends all the time that are like, but I'm really drawn to 15,000 square foot mansions. I'm like, I'm not. That's unique about you. There might be a lot of people that are drawn to that. Maybe that's something that you're meant to live into, right? Maybe that's something that's part of your journey, is like the desire of that is beyond your want. It's actually going into the inspiration. So the things that inspire you, that fill you with beautiful energy, those are the things that maybe you could start leaning into.
I really appreciate that distinction, because I think a lot of people in their goal achievement or their manifestation ideas, they focus a lot on want. I want, I want, I want, which is inherently the energy of lack, which creates separation between you and that thing. And I notice this is like one of the big blocks for people in creating and achieving these goals. And one of the things that I've noticed within me, based on what you say, is like there's certain people when I'm around them that I call it the soul spark. It's just like, oh my gosh, like I just had a conversation yesterday with someone I've seen on Facebook, and I've seen their work and I've seen what they do. And every time I see their work, like something ignites inside of me. There's something that comes alive, and it's like exciting. And finally yesterday when we hopped on and had a conversation, it was just like pure, like boom, my whole energy system was alive and so engaged. And I'm like, oh, there's a soul contract here that I could tell by like just seeing her post for every once in a while. I was like, oh wow, there's something meaningful. But then when our souls actually collided, it's just like this ignition that happens. And I think the same thing's true with what our soul is here to create, like this idea of purpose. Like for me, with my work and what I do with the Warriors of Light, it really came from this collaborative energy with the universe, right? Rather than what does Gerald want? What does Gerald want in his business? What does Gerald want to have and do? It was like this question is like, okay, what does the universe want to experience through me? And then following this trail of energy, I call life force energy, like following that trail of all these little clues. And then when I was down at Rhythmia and doing a week of ayahuasca, like there was this moment during a journey where the universe was so clear and I was so aligned. It's like, oh, this is what Gerald's soul is called to create. I'm supposed to gather these warriors of light and create this experience called the Warriors of Light Summit. And then all of a sudden, all of these downloads, because I just was following that trail of life force energy. And you're right, it came from a space of knowing. It's just like, oh, this isn't something I want. This is something that my soul's already created sometime in the future. And I'm just like, following the trail of energy to catch up. Right.
That's so beautiful. And I know you've done a lot of incredible things. You kind of gave me like a brief bio of yourself when we first talked. And I would love to hear at least one story of like a very concrete example of some of these other more like 3D things that you've done, and the difference between maybe something that you wanted versus something that you knew.
Yeah. And I think that's great, because there's a lot of times when I set these goals, it's like, oh yeah, I want to have this, or I want to create this, or I want to, develop this. And then I just get stuck. My energy is uninspired and I get distracted by all these other things, and there's very little movement. But just going back to like the Warriors of Light experience, like my soul, I had to let go of the way that I had been doing business in the past, right? So prior to that, I've been doing retreats and events for, over a decade now. And that's like home base for me. But there was something that needed to shift. I needed to let go of how I had been doing things. And then this vision is like, oh no, I'm supposed to gather these powerful, intentional, conscious leaders, these warriors of light that are up to big things, these successful influencers. And I like, my calling is to create space for us to come together. And like, I saw that and I felt that in my soul, that this is part of my contract. And so we launched this event, and I had no idea, like it was just different than anything I'd ever done before, rather than being like, I don't know. I don't know how to say it without it. Like, rather than being the Gerald show of, Gerald, and, he's healing, he's, supporting, he's like people are coming for the Gerald magic. It wasn't that at all. It's just creating a space for people to cultivate their own magic, their own genius. It was like this guru-less model, or more like the guru full model. Like, all of us are gurus and leaders in the space. And with that knowing, at first, like, my mind was trying to figure it out, and there was like friction, there was like lack of clarity, and like my brain was trying to like reconcile all of these things. I was like, okay, how is this supposed, and I was trying to think my way into the creative process. And then there came a moment where Allison and I were actually, dropping in, doing a journey together, and like doing some meditation together, where we realized all the friction that all the friction that we were experiencing in our field was because we hadn't actually harmonized with the frequency of the event that was calling to us, right?
Mm.
We were still operating in our ego-based creative energy, making about us, or like not fully like aligning. And there was like friction and disconnection. And there was like, yeah, it was hard. It was like, we were in the force energy.
And let me add one thing to what you're saying
Yeah.
too. And the idea of the magic formula, and even bigger, the idea of Wondersoul, this whole brand, is that your life is perfect. And so if you're in that space where you are thinking your way through and there is resistance, that is also part of the flow until it's not.
Yeah.
So it's a beautiful space to be in. Sometimes I find myself or other people in that space where they're thinking, and I'm like, and they're like, I shouldn't be thinking this much. I'm like, or you should.
Yeah.
And that's absolutely okay for now, until you don't.
Yeah. And I think that's super important, to not like make any part of the process wrong, because it's all the creative unfolding. And for us, like, the moment we actually tapped in to letting go of our agenda, our ego based idea of what should be, we just surrendered and just like tuned in. Okay, like, and for us, it's all about frequency and vibration. What does this event feel like? And when we could like really tune into how it felt, and her energy, my energy synced up, and we harmonized together. And then all of a sudden, like within a week, we had sold out, and we had over 15 people like on a waiting list of people that wanted to come. And it was effortless creation, and it was like pure magnetic pull towards this thing, because we were aligned finally with what the universe was calling forth from us.
And so the way that I see that is sort of like you had this pipe, right? And it was like building pressure, building. You were doing all this thinking, so much of your energy is going into it. And then all you did was you had that experience. You went, oh.
Yeah. That's a good way to say it. And it was powerful, because like you were mentioning, in this whole process, it's about getting out of the wanting energy to the knowing, getting into the space. I love how, I know you are a Joe Dispenza, fan, like I am. And part of his work is like this formula for manifestation that he says is like, it's like clarity of vision, like knowing like what is this future you calling you to do or create, plus amplified emotion, stepping into the feeling of gratitude as though it's already here, stepping into that deep inner knowing that it's already like on this timeline, it's already exists, and the time and space is irrelevant because it's already here. And stepping into that vibrational feeling of knowing like, hey, I'm so grateful that I'm already experiencing this thing. And then the third piece, which I think is like really relevant, is like, what are all the inspired like actions that flow through us, like that flowing through us energy as we're bringing life to whatever that is that's been called to be created through us.
Yeah. And it's very, very important. I mean, this is the reason why the Thrive Dojo work exists, is that when people are able to lean into this more, life and things will happen at such a speed, and energy will come through you at such an intensity that it's very important to take care of your body. Maybe the most important thing is to allow that flow. And the second most important thing is to take care of the body so that that flow can continue. What I see so often is people enter this flow and it's so magical and so beautiful, and then they don't even realize how tired they're getting or how little they're eating. because they're in such bliss and such joy all the time. So that would be the one thing I would say to prepare for everyone, is like really nurture your body as you step into this flow.
Yeah, I think that's really relevant. So let's go through this magic formula. Like, would you walk us through what this looks like and give us an experience? And for everyone that's actually participating and joining us, like, this is not just a conversation between Skip and I. Like, this is us wrapping you in the circle. And I want you to imagine that we're gathering together and we're in this sacred space. And as we do this work, let's actually hold the intention that it will activate something inside of us that will allow the magic to flow and for something new to be created. And wherever this meets you in this moment, may this be an invitation for you to use this time together as a way to experience what the universe is really desiring for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So beautifully said. So, Gerald, you will be the sample for everyone, but I would invite, as you said, everybody to participate in their own way at home and in the car, wherever they are. You don't have to close your eyes or anything, just be safe. So, that being said, we begin with asking a question for ourselves. What is the intention? What is something? It could be specific or it could be energetic, but what's an intention that you have right now that you'd like to call in? And I'm going to push that just a little bit further and say, instead of saying it's an intention, let's go ahead and say it's a magical request. And the reason I say magical request is you let go of reality and enter fantasy, because I'll get to that in step number 2. So what's a magical request? So Gerald, what's something right now? I'll give you an example. Like for me, one of the things I always ask for is even more love and abundance in my life on a daily basis. Another thing I ask for is like, I want to have Joe Rogan and Aubrey Marcus come attend one of our experiences for the physical side of it. And I have many friends of theirs. I know they've heard about it. So the magical request is that when the time is perfect for them to experience it, that they will experience it. And they'll get so much benefit, so much joy out of it that will further amplify what they're already doing in their lives.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So the thing that's alive for me is like this calling together warriors of light, and the number we have is 44, right? And we're building up for this epic, extraordinary experience in Tulum. Like we're going to be like really creating this magical vortex for people to expand and connect in intentional ways. And I am calling in the energy of being a magnet for all these people to be drawn, to this, that are meant to be there, and that we can create like the right community and culture for those warriors of light to gather.
Beautiful. So 44 gathered warriors of light in Tulum in September, if you want to get specific.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect. So everybody who's listening to this or watching this, just think about that. So we've given you 3 kind of examples there, but really call in something that fills you with some sort of beautiful energy. It's an inspiring thing. There might even be a little bit of fear, especially if you're asking for something big, right? Like for me, if Joe and Aubrey were to show up tomorrow to our next event, I wouldn't be surprised per se, because I know lots of their friends are going. And I would be like, oh my gosh, okay, well, here it goes. Like we're just doing our thing now. So it's okay if you have that response to it, but really think about that beautiful magical request. And now we'll enter the formula. Step number 1 of 3, absolute faith. Whoever you are, when you picked up your toothbrush this morning to brush your teeth, you absolutely knew you were going to brush your teeth. Think back to that moment when you were brushing your teeth. Think back to the moment where you were going to pick it up, and recognize that there is a feeling, there is an emotion in your body when you go to do that. It's this feeling of like nonchalant, like of course energy, like it's just effortless flow. Effortless. How many times have you picked up your toothbrush to brush your teeth? Of course it's going to happen. Of course it's going to be beautiful, right? But it's become so normal that you're like, whatever, of course. Take that energy, hold that energy, recognize what it feels like, even imagine picking up your toothbrush, and recognize that that's what absolute faith feels like. And then let's take our magical request. You could say it out loud. You can hold it inside and feel the energy of when you're calling in that thing. So for me, that Joe Rogan and Aubrey Marcus are going to attend the workshop tomorrow. It doesn't quite feel like absolute faith for me. It doesn't feel like the toothbrush. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold both of those energies and I'm going to flip back and forth, picking up my toothbrush, of course, nonchalant, Joe Rogan and Aubrey Marcus showing up. A little bit of fear, a little bit of fear, a little bit of maybe I don't want that to happen. And now let's blend those energies. Let's take that absolute faith from the toothbrush and allow us to think about the magical request, but take the energy of the toothbrush and meet it there. So feel that faith of the toothbrush. Feel the energy of your magical request, your intention that you're setting. Feel the absolute faith. And anytime you have anything less than absolute faith about a direct knowing like that, just remember the toothbrush and bring in that energy. You can even go over to a toothbrush. I sometimes will even bring one with me so I can just pick up a toothbrush and be like, okay, that's what faith feels like again. Got it. Okay. Step number 2 is non-attachment. The universe does not understand your words. It doesn't know who Aubrey Marcus and Joe Rogan are in those words. It knows the energy of what I'm asking for. It knows the energy of what we're going to provide for the world. It is the one that's inspiring this, right? Because it's a difference between a want and a knowing. So all I'm allowing here is to separate the want from the knowing and then say, it just cares about the energy that I feel. However, exactly what's going to happen, exactly who's going to show up that's going to provide that wonderful expansion for the world through this work could be different people. How it's going to happen may not be tomorrow, maybe a different time, maybe a different place. When it's going to happen, absolutely clueless. The universe also does not operate with time. Could be forever, could be today. I could just get a phone call right now and they're on the way over. So let go of how it's going to happen, what's going to happen, and when exactly it's going to happen. And in addition to that, take this new perspective. Now that you've clarified it, now that you've established that this is the knowing and you've accepted that, you're allowing that energy to come into your space. Your 44 warriors of light showing up to Tulum in September. Now that that's been clarified, there is nothing that you can do to stop it. It's going to happen. And recognize that everything that happens on the way to that is part of it. If you're getting up out of your chair today and you like get caught on your chair or desk in some way and you trip and fall, that was a part of it. If you spill your coffee tomorrow morning, that was a part of it. If your wife suddenly comes in and gives you a kiss on the cheek and she just felt this overwhelming desire to do that, knowing to do that, even though you're on an episode right now, that was a part of it. And just recognize from this moment forward and start to giggle at all the weird little things that happen, knowing that it's on the path that's pulling those things to you, that's pulling you to it. So number 1, the toothbrush. Number 2, giggle at all the little things, all the perfect things that are going to happen, that are going to lead you down this path that's going to eventually unfold into this thing that you know is meant for you. And then lastly, step number 3. If there was any step that was like work, because the other 2 are really just perspectives, just an energy to take in. The third step is where if you've ever played like a racing game and you see like the speed boost button and you can hit it and it jumps you forward, that's what step number 3 is. You've taken the perspective of absolute faith. You've recognized that everything is now leading you to it, and you've let go of how it's going to happen, exactly what's going to happen, and when it's going to happen. All of this other stuff is just helping it happen more effortlessly, quickly, more smoothly, and it's going to inspire you, and things are going to change. It'll be even bigger probably than you think. And the third step is transmutation. And the way that we look at transmutation is a 4-part process. So the first part, and they don't go in order. Actually, they usually don't go in order. So don't think that this is like linear. This could be all over the place. The first one I talk about is conscious awareness or conscious beliefs. When you say there's going to be 44 warriors of light that show up to Tulum in September, or for anyone listening or watching, when you feel into that magical request, there might be some conscious beliefs that immediately rise. So for me, it's like, oh, Joe and Aubrey are really busy people. They're super busy. There's no way they could make it. That's a conscious belief. That's already putting up a little bit of a blockage in the flow, right? It's going to slow the flow down of this magical request, of this knowing to come to fruition. So what I can say is, yeah, I know a lot of busy people that are coming. And when someone really feels called to it, and when it's really part of the universe's plan, it's going to happen effortlessly. And things are just going to open up and they're going to want to make time for it. It's going to be something that they are actually, it's part of their busyness. And they're like, wow, I see how much this could shift my life and how much it could shift the lives of people I care about. I'm absolutely going. I'm absolutely making time. I must experience this. So I can take that conscious belief and I can immediately say, okay, here's what showed up, but here's the truth. And I can make that switch. Sometimes it's tough to make that switch. Sometimes you might need like a professional or a coach or someone to work you through that process. Sometimes it's reading a book or journaling about it, right? The second one is subconscious beliefs. You need to dig a little bit deeper to find these. Journaling is a good way to find some of these subconscious beliefs. Looking at your past and seeing like what has prevented things in your past and what are the patterns of your life can reveal some of those. Penetrating questions from someone that's gives no fucks and really cares about you and wants this thing to happen for you can help that. Hypnosis is a really good way to look at subconscious beliefs. There's many different things. You can Google it. The third one is somatics, body, breath, and sound. So when you think about this magical request, when you think about the 44 warriors of light showing up to Tulum in September, they all are arriving. There's a little bit of a resistance because it would already be in existence if there were no resistance. So feel in your body when you feel that, when I feel like Joe and Aubrey are going to show up tomorrow, there's a place in my body, for me, it's in my lower abdominal that just there's a little bit more tension. There's a little bit less flow there. Maybe my feet a little bit, maybe my quads a little bit. There's just more tension that builds when I think into that and I feel into that. And all I can do is I can just wiggle that area. I can just move that energy around, just allow it to move and recognize that it's there, building that awareness of where the energy in my body shows up. Then you can make sounds. This could be sound healing. This could be a beautiful song, right? As you're thinking about this magical request. And now you're just saying, like, how can I allow this energy to move? How can I allow this energy to just flow? This energy is not going to go away. This energy fuels you. The energy that is resisting flow is energy, like we said before, that builds and builds and builds. And then you can just reduce the friction and boom, it just launches everything like a slingshot, like a speed boost, just like we said, right? So body, breath, and sound, you can play with all three of those to enhance that and to transmute those things. And then the last one is energetics. Energetics is magic. It's really the magic side of this whole thing. There's so many things, ceremony, Reiki, plant medicines, all the safe things, right? All of that can energetically shift you. And the beautiful part about transmutation is that, like I said, it can happen in any order. So if something energetically shifts you, it could shift conscious beliefs and you're going about your life. And we've all had this experience where something changed and then you started to discover and unfold how it had changed your conscious and subconscious beliefs and even your body. Like someone said something or did something or some ceremony or some wedding or something, and suddenly you just felt like a different person, like a new you stepped into life. That's an energetic shift when that happens, and it can have downstream effects on everything. So just be aware that those are kind of the 4 ways that I break it up. Feeling, sensing, doing, being, some might also say. But conscious beliefs, subconscious beliefs, body, breath, and sound in your somatics, and your energetics, your field, your energy, your vibration, that's your energetics, right? So now we can take our magical request. We can feel into that magical request, feel into it, being aware that it is a knowing that it's meant for you, working through our conscious beliefs, saying, here's what I currently believe, here's what I would like to believe. And you can just make that shift. You can just allow that shift to happen. That could be like affirmations even. Subconscious beliefs, I'm going to dig a little bit deeper. Somatics, I'm going to move the body, breath, and sound. And energetics, I'm going to allow the energy of my body to shift and to truly have that toothbrush absolute faith and have that knowing, that giggleness, that everything is participating to allow this to happen. And now I'm going to ask you one more question. And Gerald, you can do this live with us. This is something I came up with years ago, and it's called the most beautiful question. It's actually not a question, it's a formula as well. If whatever your magical request is were to magically come true, were to magically happen in the next week, 44 people were to certainly commit to Tulum, and they were so enthusiastic and excited and wanted to bring all of their own magic. If they were to all commit by next week, how could that happen? So for anyone's magical request, if Joe and Aubrey were to show up tomorrow, how could that happen? What could make that happen? I can think of a lot of things that could make that happen. I could think of a lot of people that would reach out to them and be like, yo, you need to come to this thing. Here's this guy, Skip. Talk to him for 10 minutes. I guarantee you this dude is magical and you're going to want to be there. I could see that happening. I have lots of people that could make that happen. Could happen. What about you? What's something that could happen in the next week that would make that magical request, that flow would just effortlessly engage?
Yeah, there's these access points to these other warriors of light that are influencers to other warriors of light, right? If I had a few inspired conversations with people that were passionate and saw the vision and felt the energy, and they were to share it with their other, warriors of light in their world, then that could easily be like a, just with a few people that are influencers, it could generate the energy and the excitement and the space for that to happen really quickly.
Beautiful. Let's get more. What else could happen? Something totally different, something wild. What else could happen?
This podcast that we're sharing right now could go viral and everyone could be like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I feel the energy, whatever this is, I'm being called towards that. And I could be like bombarded with these text messages from people right now that says, Gerald, I saw your conversation with Skip. I have to be part of it. Like I felt that in my soul. Sign me up, whatever this is.
Beautiful. Let's get one more. What else could happen? Just go magical with it. Like what could happen in a dream world? And you know what? Let's open this up. What could happen in the next month?
Yeah.
Give yourself some more time. What could happen in a month?
So I could be invited by just, major influencer in this space, say Dr. Joe or someone who says, wow, Gerald, we hear about the amazing work you're doing. We'd love for you to share your magic with our group, our audience. Can you come and share on stage and shine your light? And there could be a stage, or there could be another podcast that I'm invited to be part of, or some other space where my voice gets to be amplified to hundreds or thousands of these warriors of light that are out there, and they'll just hear the resonant calling that I'm making for this.
Beautiful. It's so wonderful. And so for the people listening or at home doing this exercise, the most beautiful question, go ahead and expand the timeline for yourself to whatever feels relevant for that magical request. And you can make multiple, make as many as you want. The energy that's here is unlimited, right? It's not a quantifiable amount. It is truly infinite, and it's in all of us. So ask everything and know that it's all going to happen in its own time, and know that it's all part of the journey of the things that you really feel called to. All the things that you truly feel called to are coming for you, and it's like they're just outside the door and they're knocking, and they're like, I would really love to join that party. I would really love to be there with Gerald. I would love to be there with Skip, like all these energies, right, of the things that feel truly called to you. And expand that timeline and just keep asking yourself, like, what things could happen? What could happen? What could I build? What could I create? What could I do? Who could I talk to? Who could reach out to me? What magical things could just happen? Like I'm walking on the street and Joe and Aubrey are hanging out and they just walk up and Aubrey's like, oh yeah, I remember this guy. And Joe's like, oh yeah, I remember this guy. Yo, what's going on? You got like a good vibe. And I'd be like, what's up, guys? Yeah, absolutely. Let's go get coffee. Let's hang out, right? It could just be a thing, right? So expand that for yourself. And of course, you don't have to even do it right now, but just take this work with you and allow yourself to practice this magical formula all the time. It could take very little time, right? Toothbrush, giggle at all the synchronicities that are constantly happening and recognizing everything as a synchronicity, and transmute. Just continuously move any of the energies that are not flowing as much right now. Use that energy that is stopping flow to increase flow in those 4 ways. And then ask yourself how it would be possible, and just keep iterating. Just let that wheel turn. Yeah.
I love that so much. I feel a shift inside of me, and hopefully those that are participating and doing this with you, like you feel that shift as well. And it's interesting because it's such a powerful and clear way to go from the thinking or the wanting or like the writing a goal to all of a sudden that like embodiment, and that piece about like the confidence, the certainty that you have when you pick up a toothbrush, that creates such like this beautiful way to transmute that knowing energy and to notice where the resistance might be. I really love that. That's really profound. And what a gift that you've offered us today.
And once that magic happens, hold on tight. Or rather, put your arms in the air, scream and laugh. And like I said before, take care of the body. Because I will predict that once this magic occurs for people and they go through this process, it'll be so joyful and so wonderful. There will be pain, though. There will be pain, because as you get better and better and deeper into coherence, into that knowing, things that are not part of your knowing that are currently part of your life might need to shift, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some of those things are the physical manifestations that have shown up, whether that's relationships, friendships, right? Careers, where you live, like all of these things could be physical manifestations of those less flowy energies that then you feel called to move. And again, let go of how, when, and exactly what. So don't worry about changing everything right away. Just allow the changes to come in. You can literally do this and then just go about your day leaning into those knowings that come through. Because again, once you've made it clear exactly what you want and something that benefits the world, it's a knowing, not a desire. Watch it unfold.
And I also feel the power in giving voice to it and speaking, and just even letting other people know what you're calling in manifesting, because you don't know where or when or how like the synchronicity is going to happen. And there's something about being able to declare it to the universe that's really, really potent and valuable. So thank you so much. During the last few minutes that we have together, like any final messages that you feel called to share with these other warriors of light that are taking time to like go through this journey with us? Any final words of advice or inspiration that your heart is desiring to share?
Yes. Make space for yourself. Make space to be alone. Make space to hear yourself. Make space, time in your day without doing anything. You could be walking, you could be driving, but don't listen to anything. Don't even listen to this. Pause this and give yourself time to just be with yourself and feel what your own energy feels like. Feel what your own space feels like. Because that's where a lot of the knowings come in, is spending time with yourself. That could be with other people around, but tune into yourself. I think a lot of magic can happen. Even more magic can happen when you recognize the seeds in your life of where so many of these magical requests are already true a little bit, right? You've already got the warriors of light. There's already so many. I mean, Steve Young is coming to Tulum. Like, he's like the general, you know? Like, recognize the seeds where these things. I was with Joe Rogan last night. Recognize the seeds of where these things are already true. And then as with anything in nature, as with any seed, watch it grow. Some grow faster, some grow slower. But if you can have that moment with yourself where you're like, oh, that thing that I have that knowing about is already kind of true in some ways. And so all I really need to do is recognize the seed of that energy and then allow it to expand, allow it to grow in the time that it wants to. However, if you are having trouble recognizing that seed, spend some time alone. Spend some time really pondering, wondering, if you will, in your own life and in your own body where those seeds are. And there's probably many, right? This isn't the first time you've gathered people for events. This seed was planted a long time ago, probably before you were born, to be honest, right? The Warriors of Light is not a Gerald Rogers creation. You're the steward of it. The work that I'm bringing into the world is not my creation. I am a steward of it. That car that I felt so called to, I didn't make that car. I'm a steward of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I think that's such a powerful reminder for people. And it's important, especially in our day and age where there's so many other people's agendas and energies that are trying to control where we direct our attention and focus our desires. And like we're constantly being bombarded with these marketing messages that take us out of our own energy center and into these other areas. And so taking time to rebalance, recenter, and to get clear and to become familiar, like you said, with your own energy, then that allows us to stay in connection with source. And
recognize that all that bombardment was part of the perfection of your journey. And recognize that if you're listening to this or watching this, that this is part of what you called in. It is not an accident that you're listening or watching. It's not an accident that you're interviewing me and that this is happening. This is something that you've asked for in some way. Anyone who's listening or watching this. So really, you created me to be here, all of you. So just recognize that this is part of that seed of you creating more, even more magic in your life, creating even more of whatever the things are, creating even more of that bliss, even more of that inspiration, to some extent, even more of that shame, guilt, and pain. Because when we tune in and we're with ourselves, we can really feel all those things, and that's okay. Because as we feel them, it speeds up that energy. It allows that flow. It's the resistance to flow that prevents even more magic from happening at the pace that it can happen at.
So powerful. Hope everyone is like fully received this gift. Thank you, Skip, so much for your time. For those people out there that, want some more Skip Kelly in their life, they want to tap more into either the Flow Dojo or the Wonder Soul or Fulfillionaire, some of the other work that you do, like what would be the path for them to get in more into your world?
YouTube, Skip Kelly. Instagram, Skip Kelly Films. Those are probably the two best ways. Or talk to someone who knows me and then just get connected with me. One of those three things.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And for all of you warriors of light out there, just remember, like this is a sacred calling that each one of us have to share this light, and the world needs this light more than ever. In times of change like we're in right now, this is where the true leaders arise. And so let us step up, let us rise, let's show up in our fullness and our greatness, and let's continue to step into this dojo of learning and growth and creation and refinement and letting go, so that we can bring our magic fully to the world. And may you remember that this is your life, so make it legendary. Thank you so much, Skip.
Thank you.